We'll get started in a minute, everyone. Welcome today for our webinar. I'll be broadcasting my screen here shortly. We are waiting for a few more attendees. Just about everybody that had registered is in attendance currently, so we'll give it another minute just in case. Everyone is in listen-only mode, as it told me, so I will suspect that the audio is operating properly, and I'll ask a question here in a minute or two to see if everyone does hear me. But, we'll give it one more minute for another person or two to show up. I'll go ahead and broadcast my my first page so that you can be certain you're seeing the What's New in Autodesk Revit 2015 Release 2 screenshot. All right. And you should be seeing that now. I'll go on hold for about 30 seconds here. I'll come back on, and we will begin our broadcast. Now, I am recording today, so that if you have to leave early or you want to revisit this, you will be welcome to do so when we get this posted and shared for all of those who need to see that. All right, nearly everyone has shown. The others can file in as needed. I'd like to ask right off if you will do so by responding in your control panel by raising your hand. If you can hear me clearly and you do see the What's New slideshow with my name, I am Chris Perry with Katzoff Consulting, and you see my title there. I'm a Building Construction Solutions Engineer. I deal quite a bit with Revit, Navisworks, fabrication products, many things we find in the building industry. So if you would please, raise your hand if you hear me clearly and you are seeing the broadcast fine, so I can check that everything seems to be operating the way that we hope. Most of you have your hands up. I can see that most everyone is seeing the broadcast and hearing me okay. I'll take that to mean it's working well, and the others may just simply not be at their machine to have heard me, and they'll join us shortly. All right, I'll put everybody's hands down. You are welcome to ask questions. You have the questions box there. We will provide time at the end. I don't expect us to take a full hour to cover what we have here, but if needed, we have that time slated. If you have any questions, please do so. Mary McDonald with Katzoff is also on the line, and she will help me field some questions. They won't be audible. Just please type those in, and I will address them as possible at the end of our session today. And if need be, I can follow up with you beyond that if necessary. Well, the purpose for our webinar today is to discuss and present to you the Release 2 of Revit 2015, this year's release of the Revit product. This also does apply to the point products, which are just simply Revit Architecture, Structure, and MEP, as well as Revit LT. Release 2 will be available for download, if you haven't already done so, from your subscription site. You log into your subscription account, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But what I want to clarify is something that is to make note often, including the techs, myself and others in our support roles. We find that we don't often read those README files, and this one is one that will make a difference if we do not. Let me just go ahead and show you a couple of web pages so that I can make sure you understand clearly what the concern may be. You should see on your screen just the regular Autodesk home page. And I'm going to browse over here to show you from our products list. I'll just go directly to Revit. And then the Support and Learning tab, where I could and might often go to do my downloads. And here you can see a downloads link. And in this list, if we go to that tab, you see right here, I'm going to search for what we may see, what we could receive in an email or in our application. That is what we call Update Release 4. And it is certainly a different name. And let's bring that up here. And if I link to the 2015 Update Release 4, there is a note down here that we should read. We shouldn't just up and say, okay, Application Manager, go ahead and install Update Release for me, because what it will present a problem is that if we are a subscription customer, we would probably prefer to install the Release 2 product. If we do not install Release 2, as opposed to the Update Release 4, we would have to do a complete uninstall before we can install the product again and apply Release 2. Now, this is a little bit confusing. I have seen a couple of support cases come in already on this. And I just want, one of our main reasons of having this webinar topic today is to make note of this. We're seeing it as a support issue, and I want everyone to be aware there is a difference between the two. And you'll note in some of the information provided that Autodesk is stating it's for maintenance and desktop subscription customers. There are a few additional features with the R2 download as opposed to the Update Release 4. Once we have our product installed, the Release 2, it will be listed in the product information dialog as Update Release 4. So I'm not sure why they've taken this tack on things. It is a little bit confusing, but there is some separation in that, and it is primarily around subscription. So let me move this page over, and I'm going to bring up my subscription page. You can see this is my subscription login. And where we go to actually find a Release 2 in our subscription account is we want to go to our product enhancements, like all the little add-ins and things that we download and install to our products. If I go to Download and browse to this page, in the list you will find the Revit 2015 Release 2 application. And if I link on this, you'll find additional notes and some other readmes. If you want to find a full rundown of what's included in the enhancements, you can see an enhancements list link here. You can look at those, and they are exactly what they say. They're enhancements. A lot of things they're just looking to improve, a great deal of information and functionality, making things work a little more quickly, smoothly. They're responding to user requests and other things that have been posted as issues or bugs. Release 2, though, does provide some additional enhancements as features and tools. Also note that all of these links appear, even though my site may only be a building design suite, which in essence is going to be the Revit all-in-one product, I may see more than a single link to download here. My executables at the bottom list here, I see Revit, Architecture, LT, MEP, and Structure. I've also noticed in a support case where if I misclick on this and I install it over top of my Revit all-in-one product, it can mess up my interface a little bit. So be careful that you do pick the one that you intend. If you are in Point Product, make sure you select that executable and run it. If you are on the Building Design Suite, make sure that you are choosing the Revit product. That'll hopefully alleviate any issues you might run into. All right. If you have any other questions regarding that, just go right ahead and ask those in the portal, and that way we'll address those as need be and see if we can answer the questions regarding that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on with the presentation. Again, it is what's new in R2, but like I said, a great deal of this is all based upon enhancements. Here you can see a list of quite a bit of the information they're targeting. Some of these names and things may look new to you, such as the first one in the list there under Platform and Architectural Enhancements. Salon is, we'll look at the slide here in a second, and it's based around energy analysis. It has been in beta, and then with Release 2, they've brought it fully into the product. It is more of a dynamic, interactive dashboard to help us with looking at choices and selections. So we can look at that. They've been adding more enhancements around the idea of energy analysis and whether we're using building element mode, or otherwise. And there's a few other items in here, and we won't hit on every one of these in today's presentation, but I would invite you to go to YouTube. All of us these days go to a lot of links that many of our vendors are posting things on their YouTube channels. Autodesk certainly has one of those channels. And if you want to watch some live video and hear some further descriptions and things that you can revisit, go to the Autodesk Building Solutions channel. You can get there by just searching for Autodesk, and then you'll find all of their channels on the list. And they have quite a few Release 2 videos posted up there that are pretty descriptive in what a lot of these enhancements are focused around. All right, starting with basically the platform enhancements, which is usually what they group as architectural. Here we see what I was talking about with the Salon integration. What we're seeing with Salon is that they're just looking to, again, move that beta tool fully into the product so that we have a more interactive aspect with the energy analysis we're running. Of course, with our subscription account, we're logging in to our Autodesk cloud account, and with that, we're getting to Green Building Studio. And the Green Building Studio is where we saw the Salon before, if you had a chance to look at that and get some feedback on it. But we can create these dashboards like you see the images on the right side of the screen. And a lot of these are interactive in that you can click and drag and move things around. And they're going to be a little more helpful in getting more real-time feedback with how we may be doing some conceptual analysis, and hopefully assist us in making quicker decisions with regard to that aspect. All right, I'll go to the next slide here. Documentation-based. One of the bigger functional things that I've seen, I'm not sure yet how I will see this because I haven't run into a wall joins issue that gave me such a problem. I really tried to look at the tool and the Release 2 approach. But wall joins, where before we had to select each individual wall join, we can actually select multiple intersected joins, and then we can get options on our options bar to affect all of them at once, whether we want to disallow the join or change the display reference, or we're telling it to clean the join or not to clean the join, and so on. They're just looking to have a better click interactivity to get to the resolution more quickly when we have multiples of the same kind of thing. In the bottom left, we see a snapshot of our schedules. Inside of our schedules where we could add data rows. It's like in a sheet list when we build a cartoon set for all of our drawing sheets or sheet views. We could add additional rows and not actually create sheet views to actually populate that without actually creating them, create them on demand when needed. They've actually moved it from the options bar up to the ribbon. You can see the button right here, insert a data row. And all of our schedules, I believe it covers every one of them. There might be an exception in there. Panel schedule certainly I think would be an exception on the electrical side. But quantity type schedules, we should see this button available to assist us in key schedules and regular quantity-based schedules altogether. There's not an image here of shaft openings. But shaft opening tool, we always had to define the base. Now it's defaulting to whatever current view the work plane is associated with in that view, say first floor. The bottom of that shaft will be associated with as default, which could save some time. It's just one of those things we're trying to add for us to have one less click. IFC. We keep seeing Autodesk try to address IFC interaction. I've often found myself probably in two ways using IFC files, Industry Foundation class. It's certainly a file format we use to interchange 3D model data. Sometimes we can see intelligent information come across. Often those exchanges don't do so. We see generic model categories and other things come across. But the enhancement here is more the interactivity of how we can see the geometry work for us. Now many, especially on the MEP side, many of our components are host-based. Host-based in the sense that they're maybe face-based, if that be a horizontal or inclined or vertical face. And now I'm seeing an interaction that allows me, if available, an IFC file, I can bring that in as a link, and then I can actually host components to that. And it will respond to me if I have changes with new updates to an IFC model. The example might be if I'm an engineer working with a ArchiCAD user Graphisoft person that actually provides an IFC exchange that way. That's one of the methods I've actually used IFC. The other is actually if I have something in AutoCAD Architecture or AutoCAD MEP and I need to get it into Revit, I will use an IFC approach that way. So it can be helpful that I can actually host elements to that linked geometry. There are a few other things in there regarding phases. It accepts a default phase and should give us a better interactivity when that actually presents itself. All right, one that is specific to R2 and not update release 4, we're seeing it described that way, that if we are a subscription customer, we should see functionality that now inside of any 3D view, we should be able to right-click over the view cube and say, all right, let's make this a perspective view. We do this kind of thing if we utilize Navisworks. We can change from a parallel projection to a perspective projection. And I'll admit right off, and it may be the fact that I'm in the reseller channel and maybe they don't look at our subscription quite the same as the customers, that even though I would be considered a maintenance subscription customer, I'm not seeing that tool work quite the way they're describing it in some of their video presentations. They say that it's bi-directional, that I can change a 3D view over to a perspective view, or I can take that perspective and change it right back to a parallel projection. I'm not seeing that work on my machine as of yet, so I actually need to get into someone else's account or test my own account at my home office just to see if that is indeed working in that way. But I've seen them present it that way, so obviously something's wrong maybe with my reseller subscription account. That could be the case. But you do need to have a subscription account to be able to have an effect capable of this. You notice that it also says on the slide here that there is a reset target tool. You can actually tell it a position point where we want to target this perspective setup so that if someone else in my team gets in and manipulate this perspective view, and sometimes if we start to stretch those grips, things get all distorted, and I want to use the reset target tool to set it back to where it was originally. It's kind of like a home setting, I suppose, for a perspective setup. So we got another slide that actually shows us more about the idea of the toggling of our views. And note where, if you can read that little dialog box, it says that annotations and displacement sets aren't supported in perspective view. So we will see some functionality that we may gain by changing to a perspective view, such as certain modeling tasks and editing tasks that we may not have had in a parallel mode, or vice versa. But we see that annotations are not available. And what it will do is it will alert us saying, hey, you can actually make a copy of this, and that way we'll give you a method to work with it. The next one, let's see, view improvements. We're seeing an addition with referencing our other views. So when we are creating callouts that are drafting based, you can see the little callout here on the ribbon snapshot, in that I can actually search for views, search for names of things I may have stored those. Maybe there's a certain type of typical detail I want to reference, or there's a certain view I want to use as a drafting view reference. I can find that a little quicker in the list by using this search function. It's kind of like with any of us that may be utilizing Windows 8 operating system at this time, how we can search more easily. We're seeing that integrated into a lot of things, and we even see that in Revit. We can search things inside of our properties palette, inside of our project browser, and so on. All right. This one I really like, the PDF export enhancement. Now, granted, not like AutoCAD has the capability of an actual configured driver for us that we can do a drawing to PDF creation. We're not doing that. We still need a PDF driver as a Windows system printer inside of Revit to generate that. But if we are doing so, we are exporting PDF files, whether they be individual files or whether they be as a whole file, several sheets inside of one PDF. What we're finding now is that the links that we have inside of Revit for section callouts, plan enlargement callouts, and so on, these links are now becoming hyperlinks in our PDFs. And this can help us, whoever we're sharing the PDF file with, that they can now click on those hyperlinks and it'll actually browse to that page. I've even seen it I tested it once that if I did single sheet exports of my entire set, it would open and show per the hyperlink the other PDF file, but it doesn't function quite as efficiently as if I were to do an entire PDF set. Just depends on, of course, what our project may need, exactly how we might work with that. So that's a big enhancement that I'm really liking. If anyone is familiar with EaglePoint, EaglePoint came out with plugins to Revit quite a few years ago, and I think it was called SiteWorks. I may not have the name right. I messed with it a little bit myself, but it was for the idea of enhancing the capability of site design inside of Revit. We know that the site tools inside of the Revit product is not the best in the world, but again, we're not trying to be civil engineers inside of Revit. We kind of joke once in a while, when are they going to come out with Revit Civil? But there are a lot of tools in there, and we find that there's a lot of tasks and steps to get it to do what we want it to do, and maybe even workarounds that we may have to deal with to display the site we like in 3D. What EaglePoint did is they developed some plugins that would do different things like bring in land XML files. These may be point files, they may be contour files that people utilizing something such as Civil 3D could actually provide us the information. And then topographies could be generated from those XML files. So it'd be a little more accurate and interchangeable with our civil partners. So now what has happened, Autodesk acquired this product. Actually, EaglePoint is not going to continue supporting, nor will Autodesk support the actual SiteWorks, again, if I have that name right, by that name from previous installs. They're actually making it part of our subscription offering. Now, if you're interested in the site design addition to Revit 2015, then you'll need to go to the Exchange Apps site and search under Revit, and you'll find the site design enhancement there, and you can download and install that. It will appear on your ribbon just as an additional item, different full ribbon. It's got several tools in it, creating sidewalks, topography, other site elements. You can grade parking lots. There is some earthwork capability in there. But I think they've got some more development to do now that they're going to fully bring this in and offer it as an Autodesk-based tool. Some commentary on discussion boards that it feels a little counterintuitive, a little clunky, if you will. So I think there's some enhancement that may occur there. But give it a try. See what you can accomplish with that, or if it suits any of your needs site-based, and maybe get some feedback on that, and that way they can actually look at how they might try to enhance that tool that they're going to offer us inside Revit. Revit Link, I'll just hit this one quickly. We're seeing faster regeneration times with our tools when we are linking in additional models. That's going to be a big help. We find that if Revits are loaded outside of a crop region, maybe we've cropped things down, that would tend to slow us down. It's no longer a problem with this enhancement. They're making a claim. I haven't tested all aspects, but I'm going to trust that one's right. Another fairly usable one, selecting hosts for tags. Now, what we're finding is this works, first off, for all tag types. We can make multiple selection types. And whether we're tagging within the native model or we're reaching through into a link, a couple releases ago we got the capability to actually reach through the link, and we can use our tags in our model and tag an object in the link. But most importantly is that we have to have a host. We can't have orphaned tags for this enhancement to really work for us. But what it allows us to do is that we can actually easily, as you see in the screenshot, they've selected one of the framing tag members here. And if I don't know what the host belongs to, it's been moved by someone else, I moved it inadvertently, whatever it may be when I come back to the project, I just don't know where it is, I can say select the host, and it will show me on screen what it belongs to, if indeed it does have a host. And then I can actually have a couple other tools there. I can host it to something new or whatever it may be. I guess there's been some concern user-wise. They've been posting issues that this is a problem, the way they've been working with it, and that's why we're seeing this type of enhancement. Again, this does work through a link model if we have tagged elements from that link. Next item, a few releases ago, again, they gave us the ability to annotate accounting. As you see here, a number of treads and risers if we need to show that. There are some entities or trades that need to display such annotation. Others may choose to do so just to clarify things, and they've actually streamlined the process a little bit, actually setting some default properties before you place the annotation. So that should just work a little bit more effectively for people who actually utilize that feature. If you've ever, like me, placed an equality constraint or any other type of alignment constraint inside the model, we see maybe some dimensions and we actually delete those dimensions because we don't intend on them actually being printed or anything, then sometimes someone or myself, I may have to come back to the model and like, well, what's it constrained to? You got to click on that before we actually see some reference. We can actually now, through a view control button that will appear down here on the control bar, bottom left of our modeling screen, that we can reveal constraints, and it will actually show what the constraint is, what actually all constraints in that particular view have actually been applied. So it'll be a little easier to find what we're getting to, maybe if we need to try to fix things. I'm going to skip the adaptive point. Actually, it's just really a kind of an orientation change for its default setup for what it orients to. If you're into doing adaptive points inside of some of your conceptual family models and things, you might want to look into that one. More importantly, I think, is the thin lines capability. Many of us, the first task when we load a model the first time in the day is we turn on thin lines mode because we know that line weights are displayed. But what happens now is thin lines has been, in essence, kind of removed, and it's actually in the INI file, so that now when I relaunch my Revit, it's going to remember that last setting. And I like this in that I don't have to change it anymore. Of course, you could make a TL shortcut or whatever you like and change it very quickly, but if it saves me one more effort and input, then I'm happy about it. And even if I change it in one project and open another project, then it will remember that setting for that session. So that's a handy item. And I don't remember, I don't think it states on any of the slides I present you, but there are a couple of other similar kind of things that might be the Revit initialization file setup. We're now finding, for those who may want it, where before on our graphics selections for showing a white background or a black background, then what we're actually finding is that we have colors we can choose from if you indeed need a purple screen to work on. Whatever it may be, we actually have that available, and I think it's there's certain other similar things being written to the INI file that you might want to look into on some of that enhancement list. Here's one I probably never think about because I don't work much in AutoCAD after the fact with exports from Revit, but I do export models generally for Navisworks users. But if I do provide something to someone who's going to continue working in AutoCAD, this will matter. The coincident lines choice, which will be part of our drawing or DXF exporting, we want to preserve coincident lines. So in the screenshot you see there's like a desk or a table here. If that's abutted against the finished surface of a wall, it actually, as you'll see on the left side here, certain lines may not come through on the export in previous versions. So that if we use our coincident lines preservation, then it actually will be, if an edit is made, to move that element that was coincident with that plane the line sits on. So this is a good one for individuals when we're collaborating with people who are still utilizing AutoCAD or something else that uses a DWG file. All right, I'm going to move on over to structural engineers quickly. They never give us a great deal of information on, well, slides on the structural engineer side and the MEP engineer side, but there have been some enhancements that are pretty beneficial, I'm finding. We keep seeing the addressing of rebar inside of our modeling environment more and more. So here with Release 2, placement has been added to any 2D view that we may deal with. This is one I'm yet to practice with. I do a bit of reinforcement modeling, but I haven't gotten into it since I've installed my R2 version. But we're going to be looking now for additional work plane controls on the ribbon. Before, we would always see work plane, cover, parallel, and perpendicular assignments. Now we're seeing some additional buttons here that we're going to want to look at depending upon the type of view we are in. It's just going to give us a quicker capability of how we get rebar when needed to be modeled inside of our view. One of the bigger functionality changes is the capability of taking a framing member now and flipping its orientation left to right, just mirroring about. And you see by the screenshot here, this one has a little bit of kind of a notch on the one side, and then we see the actual precast member, this I shape on the right side of the screen here. That we're flipping the member, whether it was modeled in the wrong direction for how the family is created. It's not an asymmetrical, or it isn't a symmetrical type section. It's an asymmetrical here. It's a little easier to define these framing ends. You know, they gave us the capability with the analytical model to determine which was the start and which was the end of the framing member, which got confusing for us because we always picked the wrong one when we needed to change that. We were extending one or cantilevering one. We could use that as a trick, but now this will probably add additional capability that we can flip these orientations, and it will carry the consistency. You can see the start and end position coloring for the structural users. The green for go, the red for stop, the end side here that is flipping consistently with that member as well. So this one's going to be handy on some of the framing edits that we may do. The capability now that if we have any modeling line information, which might be coming from a CAD drawing or some other model line generation, it might be 3D model based, that we can snap to them a lot more effectively than ever before if we were ever able to do much snapping in here, which is going to help us. They're just trying to create enhancement of developing models off of other existing information and other elements and be consistent and confident that what we're picking on is going to work for us. So this one should be quite handy in our ability of how we actually place our walls and slabs and our other framing members. Another big change is the setback reference control. We can actually select multiple elements and effect a change reference, which one it's using as the setback control and what it's going to be cropping to and so on. We also see, you'll see this justification panel here, that this has actually been moved from the properties palette up to the Revit. We're seeing the justification controls up here. You'll notice the justification points, whether we're telling it left, right, middle, center. We're seeing Y and Z offsets as well. Those are going to be big changes, something we may need to adapt to quickly as we're used to doing it from the properties palette. So we'll actually be looking to the Revit to make those changes now, and then the usability of actually picking several things and making a consistent edit for all of those at the same time should help us a great deal. There we're talking about the Y and the Z offsets. Properties were moved. They reorganized the interface kind of structurally with regard mostly to the properties palette, how things have changed, and where our analytical information is actually presented to us. They keep trying to make that just a little bit better than previous. Now onto a couple of slides for MEP. We're seeing this largely around electrical. Now there was a plug-in, I think it was an actual Exchange app. Whether it's exactly the same thing Autodesk has brought into this one, the capability of doing a couple of things with panels. Now here first, we're seeing that, first off, it's going to remember last panel assigned. So if I go to a new circuit or system assignment, it's going to remember that panel that I last assigned, just hopefully eliminating the additional click that I might have to, or the click on screen as I go point to it graphically and assign the panel for that particular circuit. We're also finding that the circuit capability has been enhanced in here. We've had this request many times, that often as we circuit things down a corridor, you know, back-to-back rooms, we want to do even and odd separation in our numbering. And you'll notice this will occur from the electrical settings dialog box. Here under electrical settings, general settings for that, we have a circuit sequence parameter setting now that we can affect. We can tell it to group them by phase. We can do odd and even. We can do them straight numerical, which is kind of the default. So this will give us the capability that as we are circuiting things, we're going to be able now to actually hit that desired request. We're going to be able to make these all odd circuits. I'm going to do 1, 3, 5. I want to number them that way, and I want to keep those connected without, like it says, disrupting other circuits and having to move things around and edit our circuits to get it to do what we want, which really is just taking us time that on the electrical side we don't have. We don't have time to spend with that. Also, the moving capability here now has been enhanced with how we can shift our actual circuits around. We can actually move these left to right, up and down, and actually we'll get a highlight. When you try this, you're going to see it highlights green on that the panel schedule itself. I want to select this one. I want to target and move it to another place. So I can displace this more easily without messing up other circuit orientations. And it shows me what's available to move to. So that one is going to be quite helpful in terms of where we want to take advantage of what Revit can do in generating a panel schedule for us. Lastly, on the HVAC side, we were given ASH rate tables that we could define loss coefficients and things inside of our fittings so that we can actually define those there in the properties palette for each of these individual items. They've actually gone through and actually they've given us some diagrams, the diagrams on the ASH rate tables that we can actually look at inside of here, get some visual feedback on what is actually being calculated from, and just to give us a little more confidence in what it and dependability on what it is we are actually working with. All right, let me go back to the initial screen because that's really all the slides I have prepared for you. No doubt you probably will have some questions. Biggest of note is the fact that I want you to be sure that if you're wanting the Release 2 product as opposed to update Release 4, then you're going to want to make sure you go to your subscription account to download that. And when you do so, be sure you download the product that you are using. You may have multiple products in your office. Maybe there's a differences between design suites as well as point products. Make sure you're grabbing and applying the correct one so that you don't get any issues you need to come to support. But we welcome you to send us an email to support so we can try to help if something like that actually occurs. All right, let's see if something else comes to mind, but let's go to questions. And like I said, if you have any questions, please do so in your questions box. I don't have anything showing at the moment. Mary, if you see anything, let me know that maybe I have missed. And we'll give it a few minutes. I do see we have 20, 21 people attending here. Maybe if you're having any issues with providing a question, you need an answer on something, raise your hand if you're unable to submit that, and I'll see that actually post, and then maybe we can kind of address it in that way. And I'll give it a few minutes if anybody has any questions. I'm actually going to go to another slide so that if you need to make any contact with me, get that down there, up one page, there we go. There you can see my email address. You're welcome to email me if you have any other questions, concerns, or comments about the webinar today. The second address there is the address we always offer to all of our customer base. When you have a support issue that you need assistance with, please send it to support. That is an alias we use internally that all of our techs, I think we have 8 or 9 now, that all of us see it at the same time. Even our VP of Technical Resources sees that, so that who's available can jump on it as we have a chance. I do see one question. Let me take a chance at this one here. I'm going to read a little bit. Actually, I see several coming in now. All right, just a minute. Let me have a chance here and look at it. Oh, Mary is saying, this is my Mary, I think. She can see the question, the answer in the follow-up email. Yeah, you may be receiving all the attendees today. We do have your contact information. If we need to send anything out, then you may very well do so if need be. How do we tell what version we currently have? Very good question. I do have Revit. Let me make sure that you are seeing that on your screen. Okay. I have my Revit application. This is full-on Revit from the Building Design Suite. So anytime one of the techs and support roles asks you, or you need to know yourself, you can come to the little question mark up here in the upper right. There is a drop-down caret beside that. If we go to About Revit 2015, we can get our first page. And I want you to make note of something. I mean, first off, the line here tells us what build version we have. Often when we go to Autodesk support to collaborate on trying to solve a problem, they may ask for the build version. This is really in reference to like July 30th, I believe. Or actually, no, this one's September 5th. That's the date it actually shows. Not that that matters. You can just give us the build number. But as I said earlier, whether you install Update Release 4 from the product download page or you install R2 from the subscription account site, it will list it as Update Release 4. Now, one thing I didn't say earlier, before you install either of these, hopefully everybody's doing Release 2, you're a subscription customer, you need to have Update Release 3 installed. It will require that before you can actually apply that. If you need any further product info, maybe a serial number, something else that's been requested of you, again, maybe in support role, you can click on the product license information button here to find out what product it's associated with. The fact I'm in Revit doesn't mean it's Revit. I'm associated with the building design suite. There's my product key. Often we need to know that, certainly on installation, but maybe in support role we want to make sure, what did you really install this as? And then there's your serial number. Okay, so hopefully that answered that question adequately. Let me see what others we have. Okay, I think the next question being, where do we look to find out if we have updated to Release 4 instead of Release 2? Well, that's a good question. The build version, I believe, is stated the same, and it says Update Release 4. So unless you know what executable you used, I currently don't know if there's another way we can determine that. I haven't checked Control Panel. It might simply say the same thing. I could try by bringing up my machine here. I'll do so on my other screen and see what it says, and then let you know if there's anything informative. But as far as I know, other than the Control Panel, I'm not sure if we can tell the difference, so we've got to be careful. I kind of wish they wouldn't have confused us in this manner. Am I correct that Release 4 is included in R2? Update Release 4 is. Every enhancement that is in the enhancements list for Update Release 4 matches exactly Release 2 for 2015 off the subscription site. I printed out both, and then I looked closely, and every single item is inclusive. It's just that R2 has a few additional benefits for subscription account holders that do not exist for the Update Release 4 download. Okay, I did get my Control Panel up. Let me look real quick for you and see if that happens to say anything. Let me check one other item. I didn't see anything on that page. Yes, that doesn't, yes, I'll show you my Control Panel. You'll notice when I look at I turned on the display of updates that have been installed, and I look under my Revit 2015 product, you can see that I've got update 1, 3, which 3 included 2, 4 showing. But I know that I applied my Release 2, the R2 from the subscription site, so that doesn't seem to be identifying that for us. I'll have to look and find if there is a way that we can tell. It'd be a good one for the support team to know. We've really only, even though this has been out about 4 weeks now, maybe as much as 5, I'm not sure the exact posting date, it was mid-September. I'm not certain whether or not, what I'm trying to say is when we actually saw this come through. And as soon as I noticed, it must have been the same as customers noting, because then the support cases started coming in. Not too many. People have been having too many problems with it. I've seen about 3 cases. So I'll have to look into it and see if there's another way we can find that we can identify whether it's Release 2 or not. Let's anything else here? I understand one needs to install. Yes, you understand correctly. Release 3. Now let's get the terms right. You need to have update release 3, which would come off of the product page. You might even see it in your communication center or your Autodesk application manager. The update release 3 needs to be installed before 2015 R2, the one that is on the subscription site that we're talking about today. Okay. Any further questions? If you do, raise your hand if there's a problem, or go ahead and post that question. We'll give it a few more minutes. I can hang on. If you don't have any further questions, you certainly you're welcome to go ahead and leave. This is about all I was going to cover, but I want to address any questions that people may have, and that'll be included as part of the recording. I'm not certain how we're going to be posting the recording and the access to that. I'm sure you'll be contacted after the fact. For today's attendees, that you'll have access in whatever manner that may be. Question, I do have a new question. What happens if you install R2 without installing R3? You actually should get a dialog box that says it can't be applied. It should say that. I don't know if you're going to see something different. It should either prompt you that it needs to be installed, or it's going to say it doesn't find a particular product. It's probably an interesting question. There could be different scenarios you run into, but what I would anticipate is it would say that another release or something has to be applied before R2 can be installed. Mary is letting me know she'll send out an email to all attendees with a link to the recording. That's my recording. Okay. Got to thank you. Thank all of you, certainly, for attending today. Keep questions coming in if you like. I'll stay on the line for a bit. All right, if you do have any questions, please post those. You've got my email address. I can bring that up again. There is my contact information, the support email address as well if you have any other issues. We thank everyone for attending today. Other than staying online and allowing some questions to be posted, and I can address those, I'm going to go ahead and we'll say that the presentation is finished for our webinar. Again, we thank you for attending, and go give those new features in R2 a try. See what it is you like. Let Autodesk know what doesn't work for you or what may work for you. And if you have any issues, just let us know. Again, thanks a great deal for joining us today. Hi, Kevin. I see your question. What file do I download? Autodesk Revit Architecture 2015 R2 dot, no, is it dot? Yes, .sfx.exe. That is correct. You are actually downloading. I closed my page, but I'll gladly bring that up again for you. If I can get there quick enough. Log into my subscription site. It is the SFX. I don't know why that's the name on that one. Executable file. That is what we're looking for. go ahead and I'll browse over that page. So if you need to see it, you will be able to do so. Okay, again, product enhancements. You're probably already there since you see the file name. There's my R2 page. Yes, if you have the building design suite, you want Revit 2015 R2, that's sfx.exe like you had put in your question. You're welcome. Okay, I see no further questions. Okay, Kevin, I see you had architecture. Okay, then be sure you download the Revit architecture link. What I actually saw happen, someone had applied something different of the point products, one of these, onto the Revit all-in-one product, and they were seeing an issue with the properties palette and project browser disappearing after they initiated the program. It seemed to mess with the INI file somehow. I'm not sure how that messed with the code, but we had to successfully install. I think it was more like a failed install. But anyway, yeah, be sure you grab the right one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar.